The courtroom was cold and quiet, except for the low hum of voices. A woman sat alone on a hard wooden bench near the front. Her name was Emily, and she looked to be around 30. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, as if the weight of the world rested on them. She wore a plain sweater and simple shoes, not like the fancy suits that filled the room around her. She clutched a folder tight against her chest, her knuckles pale. It was all she had. Pages of notes, papers, and one small USB drive. Her eyes stayed on the floor. She didn't dare look up at the crowd, though she could hear them. Is she really here alone? Probably can't even afford a lawyer. What's she even doing here? Their whispers weren't quiet enough. Some snickered, others just stared. She was the only person on her side of the courtroom. The other side was packed, lawyers in crisp suits, assistants flipping through thick binders, and even some reporters with notepads. A tall man in an expensive navy suit turned around and caught her eye. He smirked, like he'd already won. His name was Mr. Granger, and he was the reason Emily was here. She looked down quickly. The judge hadn't entered yet, but the air already felt heavy. Emily could feel her heart pounding, but she took a deep breath. No one was here for her, but she was here for someone who needed her, and she wasn't backing down. Emily's life had always been quiet and simple. She worked as a librarian at a small town library, surrounded by dusty books and whispered stories. She liked the calm, the steady routine. After school, she would help kids find books and sometimes read stories aloud. It was peaceful. Her family was small. Her parents had died when she was young, and she was raised by her grandmother, a kind woman who loved Emily like a daughter. But a few years ago, her grandmother passed away too. Emily felt more alone than ever. Her older brother Jake had always been a mystery. He left home when Emily was just a teenager. They hadn't talked much since then. He had trouble staying out of trouble, and she worried about him every day, but she never stopped hoping he'd come back. One rainy afternoon, her phone rang. It was a strange number, but when she answered, a serious voice told her they had found Jake. He was in jail, accused of something serious. Emily's stomach dropped. She couldn't believe it. Jake, her brother, the boy who once saved a stray dog from the cold, was now facing charges that could ruin his life. Emily didn't know what to do. She felt scared, confused, and alone. But something inside her told her she couldn't just let Jake face this alone. No matter how hard it was, she had to try to help him. That was the moment everything changed. She stood up, packed her things, and headed toward the courtroom, ready to face the storm ahead. Jake was accused of stealing from a very powerful man, Mr. Granger, the wealthy owner of a big company in town. They said Jake had taken thousands of dollars and damaged important company files. The police believed it, and the news spread fast. Emily couldn't believe it. Her brother was no criminal. She remembered Jake as the boy who would share his lunch with friends and helped his neighbors fix their cars. How could he do something so bad? She tried to find a lawyer, but everyone she called refused. Mr. Granger's case is too big, they said. You don't want to mess with him. Some lawyers hung up on her. Others said she didn't have a chance. Emily felt more alone than ever, but she didn't want to give up. She knew the truth was on Jake's side. She thought about giving up and letting Jake face the trial alone, but something stopped her. Her brother had never given up on her, even when he was gone for years. Now, it was her turn. With no lawyer and no support, Emily decided she would represent Jake herself. She didn't know much about the law, but she knew she had to try. It was a risk, one that could change everything. But Emily was ready to fight for her brother, no matter what. Emily wasn't a lawyer. She didn't wear a fancy suit or carry a briefcase, but she was determined. With no one else to help, she took it upon herself to stand for Jake in court. She spent every night at the library, reading books about the law. She copied down important rules and wrote questions she wanted to ask in court. Her hands sometimes shook as she tried to understand the complicated words, but she kept going. When she showed up to court on the first day, she was nervous. The courtroom was full of serious people, lawyers, reporters, and families. Everyone looked at her, like she didn't belong. A court clerk whispered to her, "This isn't a place for someone like you." Some people laughed when she nervously stood up to speak. The other side's lawyer was loud and confident, making fun of her for being unprepared. But Emily didn't let the whispers or the laughs stop her. She spoke slowly and clearly, telling the judge about Jake's good character and how he wouldn't steal from anyone. She pulled out her notes and the folder she'd carried every day. The judge watched her carefully. Sometimes he looked surprised. Emily could feel all eyes on her, but she kept her head high. Even though no one else believed in her, Emily believed in Jake, and that was enough to keep her going. She wasn't just a woman sitting alone in court, she was a fighter. The trial started, and the courtroom felt heavy with tension. Mr. Granger's lawyer was sharp and ruthless. He spoke fast, throwing big words and accusations at Emily. The lawyer acted like Emily was a child who didn't belong there. "Are you sure you understand what you're doing?" he sneered. The courtroom laughed quietly. Emily stayed calm, even though her heart pounded like a drum. She told the judge about Jake's alibi, that he was at a friend's house when the theft happened. She explained that Jake had no reason to steal. She carefully showed character letters from neighbors and friends who trusted Jake. The judge listened, his face serious but unreadable. He asked Emily questions, and she answered as best she could. Sometimes she hesitated, but she never gave up. The crowd still whispered. Some shook their heads. The other side's team looked confident, ready to finish the case quickly. Then Emily took a deep breath and held up the USB drive she had kept safe. "This," she said, "is something Jake sent me before he was arrested. It might change everything." The courtroom fell silent. All eyes were on her. The trial was about to take a turn no one expected. Just as the lawyer from Mr. Granger's side stood up to object, the judge raised his hand to stop him. The room went quiet instantly. Everyone waited, surprised by the sudden pause. The judge looked directly at Emily, his eyes steady. Then in a low but firm voice, he said, "This case is personal to me." A hush fell over the courtroom. No one had expected those words. The judge took a deep breath and began to speak. He told the courtroom that many years ago he had known Jake, not as a defendant, but as a brave boy. Jake had saved the judge's own son from a fire when they were children. "He risked his life to save my boy," the judge said, his voice soft but clear. "I've never forgotten that." People gasped. The powerful untouchable, Mr. Granger's case suddenly felt different. The judge admitted he had thought about stepping down from the case, worried about being fair, but he decided to stay and watch carefully. "I believe you, Emily," the judge said, looking straight at her. Emily's heart raced. For the first time, she felt the weight on her shoulders lighten just a little. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, but the judge's words had changed the mood. This was no longer just a case about money and theft, it was about truth and loyalty. And the judge was ready to see justice done. Emily carefully plugged the USB drive into the courtroom's computer. The screen flickered, then a video began to play. In the video, Jake was talking quietly to someone off camera. He looked worried but determined. The footage showed Jake receiving threats. Men working for Mr. Granger were trying to force him to steal company data. They threatened to hurt his family if he refused. Jake refused. Instead of stealing, he secretly recorded their plan and sent the video to Emily, hoping she could use it as proof. The courtroom was silent. Faces turned from doubt to shock. Mr. Granger's confident smile disappeared. His lawyer looked frantic. Emily watched the judge carefully. He nodded slowly and said, "This is serious evidence, we will need a full investigation." The prosecutor, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "Your Honor, this changes everything. If this is true, then Mr. Granger's company may be involved in illegal activity, and Jake has been framed." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. After weeks of fighting, this was the moment she had hoped for. The judge ordered the police to look deeper into the case. Suddenly everything was shifting. The truth was coming out. Emily's fight wasn't over yet, but for the first time, she saw hope. Days later, The courthouse was filled with reporters and cameras. The news spread fast. Mr. Granger had been arrested for fraud and for framing Jake. His empire built on lies and threats was finally cracking. Jake was released from jail. When he walked out, Emily was waiting for him. They stood side by side, no longer alone. Jake's face was tired but free. People who had mocked Emily for sitting alone in court now looked at her with respect. Some even apologized quietly. But Emily didn't care about their opinions anymore. She smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The battle had been hard, and the road ahead was still uncertain. But Emily knew they had won the most important fight: justice. As Jake looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. He whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me." Emily squeezed his hand and nodded. For once the courtroom wasn't a place of fear or loneliness. It was a place where truth had a voice. And Emily, the woman who sat alone, had made that happen. After the trial, Emily went back to her quiet life. The library was peaceful again, but something inside her had changed. She started helping others who didn't have lawyers. She taught them how to speak up, how to fight for themselves when no one else would. People still whispered when they saw her, but now the whispers were different. They talked about the brave woman who stood alone and won. Emily never wanted the spotlight. She just wanted to help. She learned that sometimes, being alone doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes, it means you're the strongest person in the room. And no matter what, standing up for family, and for what's right, is worth every lonely moment. Because in the end, the truth always finds a way to come out.